Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm playing Crazyhouse chess, where players can place captured pieces back onto the board. My goal is to win 5 games. Let's get started with game number 1. Alright, last time I don't feel like I played aggressively enough, so this time, as soon as we're done developing all of our pieces and getting our king safely tucked away, we're going to try and play this a little more aggressively than we did last time. Okay, we get e3 right away. Let's go ahead and target the queen. Okay, knight to f3 pins the knight. I'll go ahead and leave that on the board and just play e6. h3 right away. If I move my bishop back, g4, bishop back, g5, honestly should be fine. It just exposes my opponent's king a whole bunch. And there should be ideas here of like queen to h4 after knight to e4. So we'll see how my opponent actually plans to stop that. Okay, h4 leaves his pawn hanging, which I will absolutely accept. h5 does hit the bishop, but I'll just reposition it to pin the knight on f3. Bishop to h3 obviously hits the knight. Let's go ahead and take on f3 with the idea of playing queen to h4 check. Should put my opponent in a decently uncomfortable position, although I guess bishop g3 now is kind of devastating. Okay, opponent doesn't see that, moves the king over. Clearly we've played a little bit too aggressively, but I think we're still okay here. Let's drop a knight in the center with check. I think also the initiative is pretty important in this variant. If you're the one basically calling all of the shots, then you're inherently in a much better spot than your opponent. Okay, let's see. One pawn left. If I place it here, opponent just shuffles back. Check. There might be some future to that, but this check makes a lot more sense. Right away picking up the rook. Okay, king moves back. Let's go ahead and take that rook. Queen can't even recapture because of knight check wins the queen. Not to mention, actually, I think queen here and king up, and then pawn here would have been mate. Okay, bishop to c4. If I take, my opponent takes my knight, queen comes in, and there are some interesting ideas there. Let's go ahead and just drop back, give check, and then we'll pick up this bishop, and now these knights actually protect each other, so there's no worries. So we'll take with check. We have a whole bunch of material to work with. Let's drop the pawn with check. My opponent moves back, then there's mate. Oh man, okay, opponent moves forward. Okay, let's play check. I mean, there has to be a forced mate here, almost guaranteed. Right, opponent moves back. Let's play check again. King moves back. And now I believe this is indeed checkmate. Nice. With that, we win game number 1. Let's go to move on to game number 2. All right, game number 2, we get the white pieces this time. So naturally, I'm going to play London, even if I turn it into a aggressive London later on in the game. d5, sure. Whoop, that's not the bishop. Bishop to f4. I mean, like I said, we still have to develop everything normally, but our opponent seems to disagree, okay? I was going to say we have to develop everything normally before we can start our attack, or else there's nothing to work with. There's no pieces to work with, but opponent looking for e5 here. I'll just play knight here. I mean, I'll take a free pawn if my opponent gives it to me. Oh, g5. Interesting. Okay, let's drop the bishop back. I'm sure h5 and h4 will follow. Oh, okay. Knight to c6. I'll play e3 with the idea of queen here. Bishop to f5. Okay, I guess queen here doesn't work anymore because bishop back and everything's fine for my opponent. So let's pin a knight. Actually, wait, that bishop probably should have been traded off for this one. Okay, I guess I'm playing a little bit too quickly. Let's go ahead and try to offer this trade. If opponent castles long, that would be pretty darn cool. Okay, knight to b4. If we take, opponent takes back. Queen and knight are both looking at this pawn. We could just play knight to a3, even though it's a little bit of an ugly move. But it should do the job, and then we can just castle next. So let's go ahead and take here. Sure, we'll play knight to a3, defending the pawn. Okay, long castles, we will castle short. Clearly now we have opposite plans, but I believe I will be a little bit quicker than my opponent because I have c3 and then queen to a4. And there are some pretty concrete threats that follow, whereas my opponent really only has pawn pushes at the moment. So I'll play c3, booting the knight. Knight goes back, queen to a4. a6, kind of unnecessary considering the knight defends it. But we will take advantage of it and play b4. Now that the pawn has moved forward, my pawn is just fast enough to get to b5 and then basically force a pawn trade. Okay, we get this pawn capture. Do I take with the knight or do I take with the pawn? I guess if I take with the pawn, I just drop b4. So I have to take with the knight, offer a knight trade, remove one of the king's defenders. Let's go ahead and take back, open up a semi-open file, staring straight at the king. And I would argue that my opponent is a little bit too engaged in the center / the queen side, when what my opponent needs to be doing is pushing on the king side and creating problems for me. Otherwise, I'm just going to cocoon, as I am on the king side, and continue my attack on the queen side with great freedom, basically. Okay, bishop d6 cuts off the bishop. What if I just ignore it and play b5? Bishop takes, pawn takes. Nah, I should probably take back the bishop. And then I don't see how my opponent gets out of this trade, which opens up a whole bunch of attacks on the king. So I will play b5 right away. Ooh, king to a7. It's worth noting we have a whole bunch of pieces on the board, so I will take with the idea of this check, but shortly after I should probably drop all of these pieces onto the board and make use of them for my attack. It's more difficult for my opponent since I have so many pieces crowding my own king, so you can't just drop a piece on top of another piece, but my opponent has a bunch of empty squares around the king, so there has to be something here for us. Let's drop the pawn with check, winning a piece. Ooh, bishop sack. Can I just take here with check? King moves back. I'll just take the bishop with check. It just makes more sense. Okay, king moves back. Let's play c6 check. King moves forward. I mean, there has to be... Oh, nice. I was just going to say there has to be checkmate here. And that's the beauty of it. You don't have to know that, oh, at the end of the next 13 moves, when I first started my kingside attack with c3, queen to a4, oh, I already see like Hikaru or something that I'm going to drop the pawn and give mate. But you know that if you have the initiative and you're basically keeping your opponent blocking punches, then eventually you have to get an advantage from it. So with that, we win game number 2. Let's go ahead and move on to game number 3. White pieces again, very nice. And we're closing in on 1600. We get e5. I just don't have the self-control. I have to take it. Give me your pawn. I mean, if my opponent can make something of this, I will be blown away. Sure, give me another pawn too. In fact, leave g7. Okay, we only get one extra pawn. So we get knight to f6. Let's go ahead and develop. Because the problem is now my opponent has to justify giving away a pawn, which is not impossible by any means. I'm sure it's very feasible. Okay, bishop here with the idea of sacking. No thanks. I mean, I don't even have a pawn on g4 anymore, so there's no London happening. Knight to e4, insisting on the sacrifice. What's actually happening there? My opponent takes, I take back. And then what? I don't see what the follow-up is. So let's just develop the bishop and hit the knight. Invite the sacrifice, give me more material. A pawn isn't enough. I want a knight as well. Okay, queen to e7, let's go ahead and castle, and I feel like we're in a good spot here. Plenty of pieces around the king. If anything, my opponent should be worried about all of the open space around their king instead. Knight back. Okay, this cannot be the most efficient way to play this out. Let's play e4 with the idea of bishop to g5, developing the bishop, and e5, booting the knight, centralizing a pawn, maybe even e6 to open up a file straight looking at the king. Okay, knight takes. Now I can just take. Queen takes back. And what happens if I play this? Give me your queen, please. Thank you. And no, you will not be getting it back. Okay, we do get the bishop sack. Opponent has to now justify this. It feels like whatever my opponent plays, I can play my king back and I will be fine. But we'll see if that's actually true. Okay, queen goes back. That's a free queen. Okay, and definitely cannot mess this up. Let's play check. Basically just going to drop every piece at my disposal. Okay, pawn blocks. Problem is my opponent has plenty of pieces to drop as well, so it's really not so easy. Let's drop the knight with check, threatening this pawn. I guess we can just slowly vampire all of my opponent's material off of the board and then win that way, but it seems a little bit lame. Let's try to force this attack if we can. Okay, we take with check. These contact checks are really good because even if you can drop a piece, there's no such thing as dropping a piece on an invisible square, so check again. As many of those as we can get, we will strive for. Okay, king moves out of the way. I have a whole extra queen to work with. It feels like I'm missing something obvious here. Let's play check to lure the king forward. Right, and now drop the queen on h4 with another contact check. There's only one legal move. And then pawn to h5 is not checkmate. Why is that? Oh, king to f5. Oh, I didn't see that. Okay, but now pawn to e4 is checkmate. Nice. With that, we win game number 3. We're doing pretty well. This whole playing aggressively thing is working out quite nicely. Let's go ahead and move on to game number 4. All right, game number 4. Oh, we get the same opponent, but we get the black pieces this time. What do we play here? d5 feels too aggressive. Brings out the queen really early. She can be targeted. So let's play c6. Let's play a Caro-Kann. g3. Okay, now I don't even have to be afraid of like bishop to b5 giving check, because clearly my opponent intends to move the bishop to g2. So I guess we just throw all of our pieces in the center now. Okay, bishop defense. I'm definitely going to take it and then develop my pieces while hitting that bishop. Wow, my opponent just defends it. Okay, I'll definitely take a bishop. Not to mention, these are all very, very weak light squares now. Okay, I want to develop this bishop, so I'm going to play h5, even though it looks a little bit weird. I want to play bishop to g4, but I don't have a knight on f6 anymore. Nice, h4 clears the way for my bishop. Now there's a backwards pawn on g3 as well. Probably can target that with like queen to c7. Although my opponent does have ideas of just dropping the pawn on f4, and then suddenly this is actually kind of a cool pawn structure. So we'll see if I actually decide to play that. Okay, knight to e2 definitely lends itself to this. Double bishop battery, which you normally never see ever, unless it's a crazy endgame. We get rook to h2. If I take, my opponent takes, I take, whoops. I take back, my opponent takes back. I win the exchange, and then I have a knight and a rook. And I imagine I have to be able to do something with that. So we'll go ahead and lean into that for now. Queen takes back, sure. Let's drop the rook off with check and see if our opponent moves the king or actually drops a piece to defend their king side. Okay, drops a piece, which is probably the best way to go about that. Let's play knight to d4, threatening knight takes c2, threatening the queen. Maybe ideas of knight to f3 check. Queen to g2 is very interesting. Let's see, if I take with check, my opponent moves out of the way. I sack the rook, queen takes, I take another free rook. And I'm not sure that I've done everything that I was hoping for there. But it does seem to be our best option, so let's go ahead and take with check. Oh, wow, wait, there's actually a crazy idea here. Oh, okay, my opponent doesn't play it, but if king to d1, knight to e3 there wins the queen. Because the pawn is pinned to the king, and the rook is also pinned to the king. So neither of these pieces actually defends e3. That would have been a free queen, but we get king to e2. Now, how can I capitalize off of that? Because obviously I can still take the rook and I can still sack my own rook. But that's such an interesting idea. What if I play pawn here, check? King moves over, king check, pawn to e3. It's not so convincing, so let's go ahead and stick with the original plan. Nice, we take on a1. I believe we're up material. d3, okay, very concrete way to play it. Let's move the knight out, looking for d4 again. Queen to g1, let's play check. I like giving checks with knights as well because similar to a contact check, you can never block a knight check. Oh, that drops a queen, sweet. Nice, we do take the queen. Now we're definitely up material and just need to find a way to capitalize. Let's take on d3 with check. We should be able to just get our opponent to block everything. Okay, free knight, sure. Bishop has to block. Let's play check again, hitting the rook, which I've just realized I could have taken. Nice, we get it on the next turn. Bishop goes back, contact check, wins the bishop. And actually I can just drop mate. Nice, with that, we win game number 4. Let's go to move on to game number 5. Oh, we get the same opponent. All right, let's play d4, e5, give me the pawn, give me the pawn. My opponent has to show some very substantial character development here. Okay, e3 again. d5, okay, so we get our first divergence. Let's play bishop to d3 with the same idea of castling. Sure, we castle out of the way. Opponent already doing substantially better by not moving any pieces twice, and I spoke too soon. All right, pawn moves twice, which is only favorable for me since it opens up the king side. Let's play check. Knight to that's free. Oh no, free knight. Take, free piece. Okay, I definitely have to play another game after this because it's not fair to my opponent that I count these. We get king to d7. Let's play check with the queen. I mean, we're just comboing on our opponent at this point. Only option here is to defend. Okay, my opponent does, but hangs. Oh, no, my opponent doesn't hang it. Never mind. Now I'm getting overconfident. Okay, let's take here with check. Okay, opponent blocks, but now I can take here with check because this pawn is pinned to the king. Opponent blocks. Let's play check again. Draw the king out, and there has to be a way to finish this off with checkmate. So I'm just going to drop all of my pieces until the game ends, basically. Let's play check. Sure, check again. Another check. Right, check with the bishop. My opponent drops the pawn, then I just take. The knight is pinned, and that would be mate. Oh, okay. Unfortunately, this is probably the better move, but this is 10 times more spectacular. So we will take en passant check. I guess my opponent has to take back with the king anyway, so it should still be much better for me. But boy, that had a lot of style points. Let's play a5 again. That pawn was very well placed in the first place. King moves back to b7. Check. King moves forward. Let's play check again. And with that, we win game number 5. But I'm going to give chess.com a moment to pair this opponent with somebody else. And I will play a bonus game. All right. Holy smokes. Okay, we do get a new opponent, but this opponent is rated 1900. I mean, almost 2000. We get d5. We may have bitten off a little bit more than we can chew here, but I think it'll be a fun game either way. No pressure. We do have all 5 victories under our belt, but man, I really want to win this one. Okay, knight to f6. Let's play bishop to f4. Knight to c6. Sure, we're both playing a relatively solid, normal opening, nice and symmetrical. No funny business yet. I'm sure something funny business will start shortly. Let's play c3, anticipating knight to b4 and bishop to b4. Okay, we get bishop to e7, continue normal development, looking for knight to d2, and then just castling. Bishop d7, knight to d2. I'm kind of waiting for my opponent to castle because as soon as I said I wanted to castle, I had a thought that if my opponent castles first, I can play knight to e5, queen to f3, and just go for a crazy kingside attack. And my opponent may have come to the same conclusion because my opponent's playing a waiting move. And even though it would actually be pretty difficult for my opponent to castle queenside here, it's not impossible. Whereas I have full flexibility. Queen to e2, and I have whichever side I'd like, and I could even keep my king in the center because it's quite solid. Okay, rook to c8 indicates my opponent can never castle queenside. So either my opponent leaves the king in the center or castles kingside. For me, that means I'm going to play knight to e5, offer this knight trade, develop my queen, and I'll probably keep my king in the center as well, maybe anticipating c5 and potentially a sort of scary queenside attack. Okay, opponent does castle short. Let's play queen to f3, a little bit more straightforward. And we'll play h4, maybe have a cool rook lift, and see if we can demolish this 1900. What is happening? Okay, we get a... What is this? Okay, this is either 10,000 IQ play or a mouse slip, or maybe just a terrible blunder. I'm going to start by just taking back, but it may be that my opponent's idea is to weaken my pawn triangle. Now there's a missing pawn. Oh, their idea was e4. Is that concrete though? Takes, I take, my opponent takes, I take back. Is that not just better for me? Let's sacrifice. Okay, I take back. I'm the one with 2 pawns now, so I'm not really sure what the idea was. I'm now up 2 pawns, bishop to f5. Maybe it was to get more bishops. Okay, let's go ahead and play... Oh, knight to c... Oh my goodness, that is absolutely disgusting. Right, if I move my queen out of the way, there's knight to c2, which wins this rook. Is it too early to sack my queen? I'm down to 1:30 as well. I'm going to say yes, it's too early. Let's just move the queen back, lose the rook as we were meant to, move the king into the center, and then insist on our kingside attack. Right, we do get that check. Let's move the king out of the way. Opponent takes, we'll go ahead and take back. If rook check, we just drop the king back, and I think we're okay. Obviously, we lose this pawn, but we might have counterattacking ideas. Okay, there's the rook check. Let's move the king back. Opponent has no extra pieces to work with, but now a pawn. So maybe dropping the pawn, looking for promotion. Let's drop a pawn on e4 to disconnect the bishop. Bishop does move back. Let's move the king over, challenge the rook, hopefully boot it out. The real problem is there's so much space around our king at the moment that it's going to be very hard to make a justifiable comeback on the king side. Rook back to b6 is mildly promising, but not great either. I don't even want to trade pieces because then that gives my opponent more pieces to place on the board. Let's try knight to g4, and maybe there's some sort of tactic with like bishop here and then dropping it. Oh my goodness, I did not even see that. Okay, king moves over, I have to take back, whatever that promotes to. And that doesn't even give me a queen, that just gives me a pawn because it was a promoted pawn. Okay, opponent has a rook now to work with. Bishop takes, there's now another pawn that will almost certainly promote if I allow my opponent to place it. Okay, out of just desperation, let's play check. Wow, opponent doesn't even take, just slides the king out of the way. It's because my opponent understands that creating any holes is a great weakness. And I mean, if you look at my queen side, it's nothing but holes. Buttholes. Anyways, what can we do here? Maybe bishop to e5, try to force the issue. Seems very, very unlikely. Bishop to b2. If I move forward, rook here, then I still have to play there anyways. Bishop takes with discovered check. I don't have enough time to calculate all of this. Let's go ahead and start moving my king out of the way. It is 3-2. I do get 2 seconds back for every move. I don't think 2 seconds is enough time for me to figure out what's wrong with my position and how to fix it. Bishop check. Can I just take? Oh, rook drops and then takes the queen. Okay. Very nice. Let's move the king out of the way. Rook check. Wow. Forcing me to the back rank. Let's go ahead and play this and at least try to make something of it, but surely there's capture and then just taking the pawn. Sure, let's take. Maybe I can run away this way. That would be a miracle, but then queen here is checkmate. All right, with that, we actually lose game number 6, but honestly, I'm still happy that we played it. I'm very happy that we were paired with a 1900 rated player. Definitely saw the importance of just creating any vacant spaces around the opponent's king is usually enough to take home the victory. If you guys did enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Let me know down below if there are any other variants that I should try, and I will see you guys in the next one.